How's it going, everyone? Data here, and welcome back to another career simulation here on NHL 23. Today, going through the career of one of the true unicorns of the NHL, Tage Thompson. Tage Thompson, 6'6", 220 pounds. In the real world this season, 34 goals, 34 assists, 68 points through 50 games at the time of recording. On pace for well above 50 goals, 100 plus points. Crazy after scoring 38 goals last season. Signing his extension 7 by 7.145. Many, including myself, thinking that was way too much money and way too much length at the time after just one good season. But he is proving all of the doubters wrong this year. And he's on a very good Buffalo team that's going to look even better long term. Dylan Cousins extended today as well at time of recording. Alex Tuch, Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I'm very excited to see a simulation with Tage Thompson, who's already headed into the 7th year of his professional NHL career. He was drafted 26th overall in 2016 by the St. Louis Blues. The Blues had the 28th overall pick. They traded up to 26 to draft him. He ended up only playing 41 games with the Blues, scoring 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points, before being a part of the package that got St. Louis Ryan O'Reilly from the Buffalo Sabres. It was Tage Thompson along with Vladimir Sabatka, Patrick Berglund, a first and a second. Now, did it work out for the Blues? They got a captain, a Selke caliber captain at that, and a Stanley Cup. Although I'm sure they're looking at the Buffalo Sabres and Tage Thompson with envy nowadays, as he's 24 years of age, a 90 overall in the new EA rosters. That's how I wanted to use him, as suggested by Mr. Brian Michalak over in the Discord server. Usually we only do career simulations for 17, 18-year-old prospects. We want to see full careers. But no, Tage Thompson, he's already into his career, still young, but we're going to pick up his career from the beginning of 2022-23. So at this point, he's already played 6 years between the NHL and the AHL. He has 56 goals, 47 points, and 103 points through 223 games. His real-life 2022-23 stats will not count, as we're starting from the beginning of this 7th season for his career. But I'm curious to see how he will simulate now as a 90 overall with 5-star shooting, 93 offensive awareness, 5-star puck skills as well, 4.5 defense, skating, and physical. He's got the zone ability, puck on a string, superstar abilities of big rig, 1T, tape to tape, stick him up. I'm excited to see what he can do in this simulation. Now here in franchise mode, we see that with his 90 overall and medium league potential, he is listed as a first-line forward. As we get into this simulation, if it's your first time with us, take control of a completely different team here in franchise. We simulate whatever many years it will take until Tage Thompson retires. We have zero influence on any of the lines that he plays on, the trades that will happen wherever he gets moved to, the contracts that he signs, the time of his retirement. We are just watchers observing what takes place here in the EA-verse. So if you enjoy it, you want to see more franchise mode, career simulation content, and much, much more, take a look around the channel. I'm sure you enjoy it. If you're a Buffalo Sabres fan, we had our Sabres franchise mode series back on NHL 20 a while back that I'm sure that you love. But aside from that, I'll leave it there. Let's hop into the first year of our simulation of Tage Thompson's career. Headed into year number 7 of Tage Thompson's professional career, the first year of our simulation. Thompson is centering the first line here in Buffalo with Olofsson on his left, Jeff Skinner on his right. I won't look at the entire team every year, but just to quickly look at it here in our first year of simulation. Tuch, Middlestat, Cousins as the second line according to the Buffalo Sabres AI coach. Peterka, Asplund, Okposo on the third. Krebs, Jost, and Girgensons on the fourth. Defense, Dahlin with Jokiharju, Lyubushkin with Power, and Clegg with Samuelson. Between the pipes, it is Craig Anderson, backed up by Eric Comrie. In the real world, in this 22-23 season, Thompson goes on a 100-plus point pace. The Sabres likely missing out on the postseason. It's going to be tight, so we'll see. Here as a 90 overall, can he carry the team? All right, so in year number 7, the first year of simulation, Tage Thompson and the Buffalo Sabres finished 6th best in the NHL, first spot in the Atlantic Division, good enough to make the postseason. So Sabres fans, get excited for the 2023 postseason. You're going to make it. 99 points and a record of 47, 30, and 5 to get Tage Thompson to the postseason for the first time in his career. Tage Thompson had almost identical numbers to 2021-22 as he once again put up 68 points in 78 games, this time doing so with 31 goals and 37 assists. Not scoring quite as much, shooting about the same, 5 shots less with a lot more ice time, so that's unfortunate, and 2.5 less percentage on the shooting percent. Not quite the numbers that he'll actually put up in 2022-23 as he already has 68 points through 50 games, but still good enough numbers to lead Sabres forwards and help to get the team back to the postseason for the first time since 2011. Unfortunately, in the postseason, the Sabres' lack of experience definitely showed as the Lightning swept them out of round number 1. They went on to lose to the Bruins, who went on to lose in the Stanley Cup final against the Colorado Avalanche, who win back-to-back Stanley Cups, but an ugly finish to an otherwise solid season. Through those 4 games, Tage Thompson registered 1 goal and 1 assist for 2 points, was -4. Didn't help that Rasmus Dahlin wasn't in the lineup. By the way, he won the Norris Trophy, so Sabres fans once again get excited. JJ Peterka won the Calder. The Sabres coach won the Jack Adams. So good year for hardware, but nothing much for Tage Thompson. He was averaging just over 22 minutes of ice time per night in the postseason. During the regular season, as we saw earlier, he was averaging 21. So the ice time continues to rise. The shots will come. The goals will come. Hopefully, we can continue to see more than 68-point seasons, and hopefully we can get into the 40-plus goal territory. But after this first year of simulation and this 7th year of Tage Thompson's career, he remains at a 90 overall. I don't believe any of his attributes have changed, but hopefully we'll see some more growth over the offseason, and the Sabres can run back another Atlantic Division title in 2023-24. Headed into year number 8, the second year of simulation, Tage Thompson still the first-line center here in Buffalo with Skinner on his left, Tuck on his right. Cousins now up to an 89 overall, Krebs at an 83, Jack Quinn is here, so the team is growing. Defense, Dahlin at a 92, Power at an 86, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen up to an 83, so things looking good in Buffalo, especially after making the postseason last year for the first time in over a decade. Thompson's attributes look exactly the same as they were, maybe 1 or 2 small things changed, but nothing's catching my eye. Coming off back-to-back 68-point seasons, we'll see what he can do in 2023-24. In year number 8, the Atlantic Division was very strong as the Buffalo Sabres finished 21st in the NHL, but at the bottom of their division with a respectable record of 39, 33, and 10. They had the scoring, but they were just allowing way too many goals. Tage Thompson, hey, you know what? He's consistent. 67 points in 75 games. He would have been on pace to break his career high of 68, but he was injured for 7 games. Ends the season injured as well. 32 goals, 35 assists, a -6, and all while doing about 22 minutes of ice time per night. Headed into year number 9, he's still a 90 overall, still medium lead, still a first-line forward, still all those same attributes as well. Nothing has budged, but the team around him does have to improve. Rasmus Dahlin took a step back. Cousins getting better. Maybe just got to wait for the rest of the team to develop. Okay, year number 9, and now we can start getting much more excited. Tage Thompson is up to a 91 overall on the first line. His shooting accuracies seem to have gone up by 1, his offensive awareness by 1. I'm not sure of anything else. I see fighting skill up to 76, so 75. So small bumps in his attributes have now gotten him to a 91 overall. 90 overall, Dylan Cousins on his right. Matthew Savoie has joined the top 6 now, so the team is developing. Corey Perry is still out here at the age of 39. Jordan Eberle joining the team. Dahlin at a 93, Power at a 96. So after a disappointing finish last season, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen at an 86, we should hopefully see Tage Thompson and the Sabres get back to the postseason. 91 overall with Skinner on his left and Cousins on his right. Let's hit it. Thompson and the Sabres returned to the postseason in year number 9 as they finished 15th best in the NHL, squeezing in with the last spot in the Eastern Conference. 88 points and a record of 41, 35, and 6. Thompson finally broke loose of that 67, 68-point hold that his career was stuck in the last few years. 43 goals and 35 assists for a 78-point season in a full 82 games played for the first time in his career as well. A plus 38, 312 shots, that's great, and averaging close to 22.5 minutes of ice time per night. Obviously, in the real world, he'll likely break that even this season, but in this universe, that is a career high. In the postseason, the Sabres finally made it out of the first round as they took down the big bad Toronto Maple Leafs in 7 games before going on to lose in 6, unfortunately, to the Boston Bruins, who once again saw themselves reach a Stanley Cup final, but they lost to the Ducks in 5. This was also the first time that the Sabres made it beyond round number 1 in the postseason since 2007. The Ducks winning the 2025 Cup sounds pretty wild, but speaking of things that sound wild, Tage Thompson, who scored 43 goals in the regular season, scores only 1 goal in the postseason, although he did go above point per game, 1 goal and 13 assists for 14 points through 13 games, leading the team in points. He just turned into a playmaker out of nowhere. He was a -1 while averaging 22 minutes and 43 seconds of ice time per night. Headed into the 10th year of his professional career, Tage Thompson has now grown to a 92 overall. It looks like his puck control has gone up a little bit, his stick checking, his face-offs, his offensive awareness now up to a 96. So incredible stuff to see Thompson as a 92, with still another 5 years to go on that $7.145 million extension that he signed way back when. Disappointing to lose in the second round, but baby steps here in Buffalo, a team that is looking extremely impressive. Also in 2024-25, I don't usually add these into career simulations, but I just had to add it here. David Krejci, at the age of what, like 38, 39, scores 106 points to win the Art Ross, the Hart, also the Lady Byng, and even the Ted Lindsay Award. So I've never seen a player at that age, not named Alex Ovechkin or Patrick Kane or one of those regular simulation players, out of nowhere, putting up numbers like that and winning that hardware. So kudos to you, David Krejci. Year number 10 of Tage Thompson's career, and he is starting off the season as a 92 overall. All those attributes that we saw at the end of last season carrying over through the offseason. Lovely stuff. Cousins at a 91 on his right. Skinner up to an 87 on his left. Savoie up to an 87. The defense, as always, Dahlin. Owen Power on the top pair. Dahlin's a 94. This is a strong team that finally got their way back to round number 2 last season. So let's see if the 2025-26 season can be another deep run for Thompson at a 92 overall. Coming off of a career-high 43 goals and 78 points. A really tough break for Thompson and the Sabres in year number 10, as Buffalo finishes 15th best in the NHL, but because of the strength of the Atlantic Division, they do not make the postseason. Columbus down in 18th with 90 points make it, but Buffalo in 15th with 95 points and a record of 42, 29, and 11 miss out on the postseason. It was another career high for Tage Thompson, who once again finished the season injured as he put up 80 points in 74 games. He would have been on pace for about 89 points, 37 goals and 43 assists for him through those 74 games, missing out on 8 due to injury. He was a +29, took 300 shots, and was averaging 22.47 per night, the most of his career so far. After this 10th season, he remains at a 92 overall, those lovely attributes, another 4 years on his contract, great players surrounding him, just some bad luck here in Buffalo, so let's run it back in year number 11. Also, for anyone who may be thinking that these point totals are low for Tage Thompson, take into consideration the NHL as a whole. Connor McDavid is winning the Art Ross with 98-point seasons. In the real world, he's going to be putting up 130, 140 points in 2026, right? So 80 points may seem a bit low for Tage Thompson, but try and see it through the lens that, on average, the Art Ross is being won by players who score less than 100 points. Year number 11, and Tage Thompson just keeps getting better, now at a 93 overall. Check out these attributes. 5-star everything. I don't think I've ever seen a player like this in any of our franchise mode simulations. Maybe in my franchise mode history, but not in the career simulations. 5-star everything. Nothing else to say. No other words. It should be an incredible season from Tage Thompson, who has 90 overall Cousins on his right, 86 overall Skinner on his left. The team as a whole, not super strong in the bottom 6, but defensively, Dahlin, Power, they're eating up a lot of the money. The defense is still respectable. Ukko-Pekka-Luukkonen at an 87. Let's see if this team can get back to the postseason, led by 93 overall Thompson. You can't make this stuff up, as the Buffalo Sabres once again not only miss out on the postseason, but are the last team on the outside looking in from the Eastern Conference, as New York makes it in 19th with 86 points, but Buffalo in 20th with 84 points and a record of 36, 34, and 12, miss out on the postseason in back-to-back years. It was a tough season for Tage Thompson, who didn't have a horrible pace. 59 points in 73 games, would have been on pace for, I believe, 66 points, 24 goals, 35 assists. But as a 93 overall, that's surprising. He was only shooting at 8.7%, way below his usual numbers, all while averaging less ice time than usual as well, 21-16 per night. So odd decisions in the Buffalo lineup that see them miss out on the postseason. Tage Thompson at the end of this 11th season is still a 93 overall, so hopefully he won't lose that over the offseason. Great attributes and 3 more years on this contract before he'll need a huge extension. So we'll see. Is he happy to stay in Buffalo? Can the next 3 years offer some success? We'll see how the team looks at the beginning of year number 12. Year number 12, and Tage Thompson has dropped back down to a 91 overall. Still first-line center with Cousins on his right and Skinner on his left at the age of 35. Sheary, Savoie, Quinn filling out the top 6 here in Buffalo. Krebs, third-line center at an 85. We still see Power at an 88, but Rasmus Dahlin leaving in free agency. No more room for him over here. Very unfortunate. Ukko-Pekka-Luukkonen still there at an 87. So can Tage Thompson carry the Sabres here in year number 12, or will the defense without Rasmus Dahlin suffer too horribly? Still great attributes, still 5-star everything aside from now 4.5-star skating and physical, still odd being 6'6", but we'll see what he can do after an odd season last year that saw him on pace only for about 66 points. Can he get back to 78, 80 plus? Man, more pain for the Buffalo Sabres in year number 12 as Buffalo finishes 19th best in the NHL with a record of 40, 35, and 7 to once again miss out as the Rangers, the Blue Jackets even above them didn't make it. Even the Flyers in 15th didn't make it. The East is just incredibly strong, and it continues to hurt the Sabres, who never get that top draft pick because they're always just on the outside looking in. Tage Thompson continues to impress, not quite point per game, but remember, looking at through the eyes of EA simulation, 36 goals and 40 assists for 76 and 79 is still impressive enough. A plus 22, all while averaging about 22.5 minutes of ice time per night. Don't forget that Jeff Skinner on his wing isn't the greatest, even though he did put up 63 points. Dylan Cousins was also injured for like half the season, so that didn't help, and he was at an over point per game pace. So unfortunate that this was another outside looking in type of year for the Sabres. Thompson still a 91 overall, now at the age of 30. It was a good bounce back season from last year's 59-point performance, but with just 2 years left on his contract, Thompson is really starving for some more postseason action, as it's now 3 years in a row that the Sabres have missed. Year number 13 in Buffalo, and Tage Thompson's back up to a 92 overall. Bit of a bounce back after that strong season last year. Still 5-star everything aside from the 4.5 skating and physical. Matthew Savoie at an 87 on his right. Connor Sheary at an 83 on his left. Not ideal, but Dylan Cousins being spread out a little bit here. They're trying a new strategy in Buffalo. Krebs, Cousins, Quinn on that third line. The core in Buffalo has changed a little bit over the years, but Thompson still has Cousins, Power, some other good names around. I don't know if this is a postseason team, but I've seen crazier things in EA land. So let's see if they can return to some playoff action after 3 consecutive misses. In year number 13, Thompson and the Sabres finally make their way back to the postseason. Not with the flashiest of teams, but they made it with an 11th place finish, 95 points on a record of 44, 31, and 7. Pretty much scoring and allowing the same amount of goals per game, but hey, 11th place, we'll take it. Tage Thompson, he's consistent, 31 goals and 42 assists on the season, 73 points in 81 games. He was a +8 shooting at 9.2% and was logging just over 22 minutes of ice time per night. However, in the postseason, the Sabres did not make it out of round number 1 as they fell in 5 games to the Canadiens, who would go on to the Stanley Cup final and lose in 6 to Thompson's old team, the St. Louis Blues. That now makes it back-to-back postseasons where the Sabres lose to the team that goes on to represent the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup Finals. So unfortunate to be matched up against these teams, but 5-game loss in round number 1. Thompson definitely did his part, though, as he scored 4 goals and 2 assists for 6 points through those 5 games. He was shooting at 21.1%, obviously very small sample size, but way better than that, like 9% on the season, registering over 23.5 minutes of ice time per night, so he was working his hardest out there. And after this 13th season, he has a 92 overall, headed into the final year of that big 7x7.145 extension that he signed. Will year number 14 go well enough that Thompson wants to stay? Could it be another postseason run? Time will tell, but for the moment, another stinging first-round exit. Year number 15, and it is a huge make-it-or-break-it year for the Buffalo Sabres, as Thompson's contract will be expiring, as well as Dylan Cousins, which he just signed a couple days ago in the real world. 2 90 overall plus players that could be leaving next season, so Buffalo has to make it worth it. Sheary on Thompson's left, Savoie on his right. He's down to a 91 overall now at 31 years of age. The top 6 is solid enough, an 80 overall there. Isaac Rosen, who was a first-round pick in 2021 of Buffalo. Okay. Defense, Owen Power still out there. Goal goaltending, it's now Dan Vladar between the pipes. It's not the most convincing of teams, but Tage Thompson has been a consistent player, and we'll be curious to see if he can carry the Sabres to back-to-back postseason appearances for the first time in close to 2 decades. Nothing new in year number 14 as the Sabres finished 21st in the NHL, once again above 500. This year pretty close, going 37, 36, and 9, a 50.6 winning percentage. And out of the 8 years of simulation so far, I believe every season where Buffalo has missed the postseason, it's been a year where they're still above 500. So never bad enough to get a really good pick, and just bad enough to break your heart. In a contract season, Tage Thompson set a new career high as he scored 42 goals and 40 assists for 82 points in 80 games. Dylan Cousins also scoring 79 points, which I think is a career high for him. So unfortunate to the Sabres that these 2 career years come in contract years. Tage Thompson is also a plus 10, shooting at about 12% and logging just about 22 minutes of ice time per night. So now with his deal expiring, Tage Thompson is 91 overall at 32 years of age. Those attributes are still extremely serviceable. He's still a first-line centerman in the NHL. He's still a unicorn of a player, but he's going to cost, as will Dylan Cousins. So we'll see what the Sabres management want to do headed into the 2030 offseason. Can they keep both? Will they have to decide between the two? Let's see what happens. Headed into year number 15, the Sabres pull it off and they get Thompson and Cousins extended. Cousins signing a 6-year deal paying him about $10.5 million per season, while Thompson signs a 3-year deal paying him $10.32 million per season, which will give him just shy of $31 million. He now transitions to first-line right wing as Cousins takes over the center spot, and this guy Stanley Weber, the Sabres had the 12th overall pick. They won the lottery, moved up to 2nd overall, and got this player, so thankfully some reinforcements are here in Buffalo. Roseyan, Savoie, Quinn rounding out the top 6. So great news for the Buffalo Sabres. Morgan Riley, Owen Power, Ryan Pulock. How about that for some defense? And goaltending is Kaapo Kähkönen and Ivan Prosvetov. All right, so get excited. Thompson at 32 years of age is still maintaining his 91 overall status. Coming off of a career year. Let's see how the new contract and new line mates work out for Thompson as he's now 5-star everything aside from 4.5-star skating. In year number 15, Thompson and the Sabres make it back to the postseason with a 13th place finish in the NHL. Shout out to the Central Division that had 5 of the top 9 teams in the league and 7 of the top 12 as St. Louis and Nashville miss out, finishing 10th and 12th respectively. But I digress. 89 points for the Sabres, 41, 34, and 7 was their record. All right, that new contract treating Tage Thompson very well as he registered 45 goals and 47 assists for career highs in both those categories, 92 points, a new career best, all in 80 games, so on pace for what, 95, something like that? A plus 19, shooting at 14.6%. Those are the numbers that we're seeing in the real world, so good to finally see that in the simulation. While only playing just under 21.5 minutes of ice time per night, so Thompson on his new extension, Cousins 87 points on his new extension, Morgan Riley 70 points right there in his first year with the Sabres at the age of 37. Rookie year from Weber, 54 points. Great to see things finally starting to really click for the Sabres. But to somewhat of a surprise, I do have to say, the Sabres fell early, going out in 6 games in round number 1 to the Panthers, who fell to the Bruins, who fell to the Devils, who went on to win the 2031 Cup. Thompson seemingly struggled through those 6 games as he only registered 1 goal and 2 assists for 3 points. He was a -5, shooting at 4.3%. Meanwhile, you see Jost, Weber, Cousins in the 20+ percentages there for shooting. He was playing over 23 minutes of ice time per night, so that's some ugly hockey, unfortunately. Thompson, after a great regular season but a lackluster postseason, now finds himself at 33 years of age and down to a 90 overall. Still a great first-line forward that Buffalo will make use of next season, but I think we're at the point in the simulation where he will slowly regress, depending on the offensive output that we see per season. This was a great year, so I don't think he'll drop too much, but one bad season could see his overall plummet. Heading into his 16th season, he should hopefully still be playing with Cousins and Weber, who just had a great rookie season on that first line. So we'll see what 2031-32 has in store. Year number 16, our 10th year of simulation, and Tage Thompson is back to a 91 overall. That great season he just had helped to keep his overall up. 5-star everything. Aside from the 4-star skating, for the first time, I think, since his first season, we're seeing an attribute fall below 4.5 stars. But the 93 shooting accuracies, 94 puck control, 94 offensive awareness, all that is maintaining the overall at a 91. Cousins at a 92 centering the first line. Weber, that rookie, at an 86 on the first line. Savoie, Quinn still out here. On defense, Morgan Riley no longer there, unfortunately. He had a great season last year, but he's no longer here. That'll hurt. Owen Power still around, but doesn't quite put up the same numbers. And goaltending is Lucas Dosa. Just looking at that every once in a while. So Tage Thompson in his 16th season and 10th year of simulation. Coming off of a first-round exit, will he be able to help the Sabres get to back-to-back postseasons for the first time in his career? Finally, in year number 16, the Sabres make it to the postseason in back-to-back years for the first time since 2010 and 2011. So over 2 decades later, 2031, 2032, back-to-back playoff berths with a great top 5 finish. No Atlantic Division title, but still a 5th place finish. 104 points with a record of 50, 28, and 4. Another wonderful point-per-game plus season from Tage Thompson, who played in a full 82-game season for the first time since, I think, 2025. 35 goals, 52 assists, 87 points through 82 games. He was a plus 20, shooting at 10.3%, while logging 22.03 of ice time per night. Fantastic season from Dylan Cousins as well, who scored 95 and 76. It looks like a great team, poised to go past the first round, so fingers crossed. But alas, it was not to be, as the Sabres fell in a round 1 heartbreak, a 7-game thriller against the Canadiens. The Canadiens beat them in 7 before dropping in 7 themselves to the Bruins, who went on to win the 2032 Cup. Tage Thompson continues to struggle in the postseason, as he only registered 1 goal and 3 assists for 4 points through 7 games. Of the 5 playoff berths in his NHL career so far, this is the 4th of those 5 where he only scores 1 goal in the postseason. Yes, those postseasons ranged from 4 games to 13 games, but the 4th time in 5 years that he only scores 1 postseason goal. There's got to be a trend there somewhere. 4 points in 7 games, even plus minus 2.9. 2.9 shooting percentage while averaging over 23 minutes of ice time per night. Now at the age of 34, Thompson is back down to a 90 overall and will be heading into the final year of that 3-year extension that he signed out of his 7-year extension. So we'll see how things go. Still probably on that top line. Physical and skating down to 4 stars, but everything else still at 5 stars. So let's hope for a hard-working 2032 offseason. Year number 17 for Tage Thompson, and he now finds himself as an 88 overall with top 6 potential. So that will continue to drop, as I said earlier, unless he has really high offensive outputs. His puck skills are down to 4 stars, his defense to 4.5, physical to 3.5 even, but senses and shooting still at 5 stars. So he shouldn't have a problem putting up points with Cousins as a 92 overall. Weber there on the left wing. Musty, this guy, Quinton Musty, he's a real player even. I should have known that. He's an 86 overall with Savoie and Jack Quinn. On defense, Owen Power still out there. Goaltending, Lucas Dosa still out here. So Tage Thompson shouldn't have trouble having a good offensive output. At 34 years of age, it's the final year of his 3-year extension. Once again, possibly his final season with the Sabres. So let's see if we can make it 3 consecutive postseason berths. Stop me if you've heard this one before. The Buffalo Sabres finished 2032-33 with a 19th place finish in the NHL with a record of 37, 32, and 13, a 53% winning percentage, but once again, one of the last teams on the outside looking in. Thompson had a great season, once again going above point per game, 4 consecutive 80-plus point per game plus seasons now, 44 goals, the second best of his career, and back-to-back 82-game seasons for the first time in his career. Lots of good things happening, but once again, not enough. Cousins, 103 points, shout out to him. But 44 goals, 43 assists from Thompson, a plus 5, shooting 13.2%, all while logging under 20 minutes of ice time per night. Interesting. Now at the age of 35, Thompson is down to an 86 overall, listed as a second line forward and headed into unrestricted free agency. Will Buffalo be able to hang on to him for a discount, or will he say, it's time to try and find my way to a Stanley Cup heading into my 18th season? He still has the 5-star shooting and senses, but everything else at 4.5 stars or below. 35 years of age, he still got it, had a great offensive output this season. Any team would be happy to have him, and I'm sure that his agent will be getting a lot of phone calls on July 1st of 2033. Year number 18, and Tage Thompson is staying put in Buffalo. Now at 35 years of age and an 86 overall with top 9 potential, listed as a second line forward. He signs a 2-year deal, giving him $9.475 million per year, $18.95 million over the next 2 seasons. Still a 5-star shooting. The accuracy is up to 95. 5-star senses, but puck skills down to 3.5. Skating at 3 stars. Physical 3 stars. Age is definitely taking a toll on the 6'6", 220-pound player, but he still has all of the skills in his toolbox. Glebov, this guy, Oleg Glebov on his left as an 82. Jack Quinn, an 85 on his right. The first time that he's off the first line in a very long time. But I'd say he's about a couple good seasons away from breaking most of Gilbert Perreault's franchise records with the Sabres. So fingers crossed for more offensive output from Tage Thompson. Another top 5 finish for Thompson and the Sabres in year number 18 as Buffalo wins the Atlantic Division for just the second time with Thompson as a part of the team. 101 points with a record of 48, 29, and 5. Thompson still a beast out here in his older age. With a reduced role and reduced overall, he still puts up 36 goals and 39 assists for 75 points, playing in 79 games. He was a +8, shooting at 13.3%, and he was logging 7 seconds shy of 17 minutes of ice time per night. With just their second division title of the simulation so far, is this year that Buffalo can finally go on a deep run. But no one's surprised at this point, right? No one? I just double checking. No one's surprised? The Buffalo Sabres lose in round number 1, dropping in 6 games to the New York Islanders, who would go on to lose in the Eastern Conference Finals to the New York Rangers. How about that for a series? And the Rangers went on to win the 2034 Cup. Thompson continued to be mostly a no-show in the postseason, as he did finally score more than 1 goal, but 2 goals, no assists, just 2 points through 6 games. Not a lot of support for the top scorers over here. He had 23 shots, 8.7 shooting percentage. He was logging, close to 17 minutes of ice time per night, same as the regular season. Now at the age of 36, headed into once again the final year of his deal. He is an 83 overall, listed as a third-line scoring forward with top 9 potential. We're probably in retirement territory. I don't think he will just yet, but we're in that territory. 5-star shooting is his only 5-star attribute that remains. Everything else between 3 and 4.5 stars. Still a player who's able to add a lot to a team, as we saw this season. And he's very close to breaking some Sabres franchise records, so I'd love to see at least one more season from Thompson, but we'll see what the 2034 offseason has in store. Here we go, year number 19 of Tage Thompson's career, possibly his last. Centering the second line here in Buffalo with Arthur Kaliev on his left and Matthew Savoie at an 89 overall on his right. Mitch Marner joins the team. He's on the first line with Cousins and Weber. That's great. It's a pretty solid top 6 here in Buffalo. Thompson at an 83 overall now has bottom 6 potential and is listed as a third line scoring forward. So once again, if the offensive output is not there, because of that bottom 6 potential, the overall will plummet. As an 83 overall, I likely think that retirement is coming after this season, but you never know what might happen, and if getting out of the second round might be enough to get Thompson to sign another contract. But I digress. We'll see what happens. 5-star shooting is still the only 5-star thing that Thompson has left. His attributes between 90 and 92 in that regard. Physical, skating, both down to 3, 6'6", 220 pounds. 4 first-round exits in the last 6 years. Now the 19th season of his professional career, 2034-35. Here we go. Year number 19, and the Sabres make it to the postseason once again, back-to-back for the second time in 5 years, so consecutive back-to-back postseason berths after that one miss in between. 8th best in the NHL with 97 points and a record of 46, 31, and 5. Tage Thompson was an animal as he played in 80 games and still scored 39 goals as a second-line 37-year-old player. Added in 31 assists, make it a 70-point season for Tage, plus 26, shooting at 15.7%, and all while just logging 7 seconds over 17 minutes of ice time per night. Fingers crossed that this is finally the deep run that he's been waiting for. Just absolutely ridiculous. Not only another first-round exit for the Sabres, but once again in 7 games as the Panthers beat them in 7 before they get swept by the Canadiens, who go on to win the 2035 Stanley Cup. But another one-and-done postseason for Buffalo. Thompson finally pulled his weight more than usual as he played in all 7 games and registered 2 goals and 4 assists for 6 points. He was a +2, only shooting at 6.7% though, and was logging over 18 minutes of ice time per night. At the end of this 19th professional season, Tage Thompson is an 82 overall at 37 years of age. He just put up 70 points, so you would think that he should continue, but retirement is absolutely a possibility at this point. Down to 2-star physical, 77 strength, 76 body checking. It's very surprising. I guess he's just not throwing around the body at all anymore. 3-star skating as well. At the end of the video, we'll get into more of the stats when it comes to things like how many hits he threw per season, but I don't know if he still has it in him after another first round 7-game heartbreak. He must be the captain of the team at this point. It's hard to rally the troops after that. But if the Sabres want to bring him back, I'm sure he'd be open to it, expiring once again, going to unrestricted free agency, but his home is here in Buffalo. After this 17th season with the Sabres, Tage Thompson is now the all-time franchise leader in games played and goals scored. If he comes back for another season, it will be his 18th, which would make him the franchise leader in that regard as well. But he's likely too far away to beat Gilbert Perreault's all-time points record. Year number 20, and it looks like Tage Thompson is back for one last ride, signing a 1-year contract with the Sabres, paying him $5.59 million. He's down to having AHL top 6 potential, but still an 81 overall coming off of a 70-point season. I'm not sure if he'll be the first-line center long-term, but he's starting off the season as first-line center with 38-year-old Mitch Marner on his right and Stanley Weber on his left. Savoie, Cousins, they're all still here in the top 6. You've got Owen Power still out here at a 90 overall, drafted goalie as an 83 there between the pipes. Tage Thompson at 37 years of age, still the 5-star shooting, back to 5-star senses, but 2.5-star puck skills, 2-star physical, 3-star skating. It might look ugly out there, but hey, he gets the job done. Coming off of a 70-point season, but 5 first-round exits in the last 7 years, Tage Thompson is going to want this last season to count. It is actually incredible how tight the Sabres make it every season, but this year they were on the right side of destiny as they finished 17th best in the NHL, which is good enough for the last spot in the 2036 postseason. 89 points and a record of 41, 34, and 7. Thompson missed 20 games this season, presumably due to injury, but it was still good enough to put up 25 goals and 22 assists for 47 points in 62 games. That's a 62-point pace. Incredible stuff from the 81 overall. He was a +11, shooting at 10.8%, and was logging still over 19.5 minutes of ice time. So it makes sense that he missed some time due to injury with like 75 durability that he has now, but he is still getting it done. Once again, presumably, I would think as the captain of the Sabres at this point. Cousins didn't do anything too crazy. Not a lot of top scorers here in Buffalo. The goaltending wasn't fantastic either, but the Sabres have made it back to the postseason for the 5th time in the last 6 years, but we have to pray that not only is it not just another first-round exit, but that Tage Thompson and the Sabres can go on a Stanley Cup Cinderella run and get Thompson his ring. But in the postseason, after a promising first round, the Sabres fall in round number 2, getting swept out by the Columbus Blue Jackets, who would go on to lose to the Canadiens, who won the 2036 Cup. The Canadiens had a lot of success in this simulation, with Connor Bedard on the team, I noticed that. The Sabres took down the Rangers in 5 in round number 1, and things were looking great, but they smashed into a brick wall in round number 2. Thompson put up a respectable 3 goals and 2 assists for 5 points through those 9 games. He was a -1, shooting at 9.7% while averaging over 21 minutes of ice time per night. So he was still getting used out there quite a bit. At the end of his 20th professional hockey season, he is down to an 80 overall at 38 years of age, listed as a depth forward with that AHL top 6 potential. His shooting is down to 4.5 stars. His senses are at 5, but everything else between 2 and 3.5 stars. Taking his age, overall, expiring contract, and heartache after heartache in the postseason into consideration, I would think that the 2036 offseason would be retirement for Tage Thompson. And in the 2036 offseason, Tage Thompson does exactly that. After 20 years in professional hockey, Thompson goes out with 1,310 NHL games played, 556 goals, 588 assists, and 1,144 points. Not bad for a player who was thought to be a bust in the St. Louis deal. He ends up being an 80 overall at the time of retirement. Still put up some respectable numbers. He was on pace for a 62-point season at time of retirement, so definitely could have kept going if if he had to, but with that overall and with all that heartache just eating away at him, I understand why he wanted to call it a career. Let's break it all down now. He was pretty consistent, usually playing 80 to 82 games. He had a career high in goals of 45 in 2030-31. In the real world, he should be doing more than that this season, so I'm sure he'll have some more, but he did have 4 seasons of above 40 goals. We'll get into 82 game career averages at the end, but I think his 82 game career average is something around 35 goals a season, because he had obviously a lot of seasons with not so much, 7 and 65 at the beginning, a few years of 20, but the numbers come down to around the 30s. Assists wise, his career high was 52 assists in 2031-32, so career high in goals one year, followed by a career high in assists the next year. Career high in points 92 in 2030-31. Again, in the real world, he may go ahead and break that this season. He's on pace to do well over 100, plus 159 in his career. Penalty minutes, he had 731 in his career, never more than 59, so he could be a gentle giant out there. He took 4,657 shots and 11.9 shooting percentage in his career. In the real world, currently shooting at way above that. When you average it all out, came down to 11.9%. He was a goal scorer, I'll give him that. 556 goals in his career, and he didn't even really get going until year number, I want to say like 6 or 7 of his career in the real world, right? 76 of his career goals were game winners, 109 came on the power play, 217 of his points were power play points, 23 shorthanded goals, 34 shorthanded points. He averaged 19 minutes and 50 seconds of ice time per game in his career. His most was 22:47 in 2025-26. He played over 25,900 minutes on the ice. As a centerman, Thompson ended up taking 26,711 faceoffs, winning over 12,500 of them, giving him a 47.05 faceoff win percentage. He threw 2,263 hits, so we'll get into that at the end of the episode with the full stat breakdown. His career high was 198 hits thrown in 2027-28. He was a wrecking ball out there. 2,263. Only blocked 267 shots, didn't really block at all. 773 giveaways to 1,171 takeaways. Solid numbers right there. I would also be interested in seeing how many fights he had in his career. I forgot that you can't check that at the end of the career, only while the career is ongoing per season, but I don't think he had too many. I'm just curious if the game had him fight a bit more as a 6'6" player. In the postseason, Tage Thompson had a lot of trouble. 57 games played only, with all of that time in the NHL. 15 goals, 27 assists, 42 points, shooting at 7.1% in the postseason, way lower than his career average. He was a -9, 38 penalty minutes, 2 power play goals, 9 power play points, 2 shorthanded goals, averaging 21-25 per night of ice time in the postseason. Faceoffs at 48.28%, 104 hits in those 57 games, with 49 takeaways, 43 giveaways, and 15 blocked shots. First round exit after first round exit, never making it further than the second round. He did it twice, once against the Bruins in 2025 and then against the Blue Jackets in 2036. Everything else in between, first round exits or missing out on the postseason, and never missing out by much. Every team that Tage Thompson was on was above 500, so it was a very interesting simulation. Tough for Sabres fans to never be bad enough to get a really good pick. They won the lottery one season, get that guy Stanley Weber, but aside from that, never bad enough to get a top pick, and oftentimes not good enough to make the postseason. And now the big question, where do these numbers put Tage Thompson in Buffalo Sabres franchise history? Well, most of the records that he broke were the ones that were previously held by Gilbert Perreault. Tage Thompson's 18 seasons played as a Sabre is a franchise record, as well as his 1,269 games played. His 553 goals are also the most in Sabres history. His 582 assists, however, put him second all-time to Gilbert Perreault's 814. So that's the one spot that Perreault beats him by quite a bit. 582 assists gives him second all-time for the Sabres. The one spot where Perreault gets Thompson is in the assist category, as Tage Thompson is second all-time in Sabres franchise assists with 582, but Perreault's 814 still stands as the franchise record. Thompson's 1,135 points as a Sabre also sits second all-time to Perreault's 1,326. There are a lot of other categories you could look at all time, power play goals, shorthanded points, etc. But one thing I really want to highlight is that Tage Thompson's 4,602 shots are the most in franchise history by a long shot, as Perreault sits in second with 3,077. And as always, comparing the final stats to the current day NHL records. Of course, the records will look very different, whatever, 15, 20 years from now. But if Tage Thompson's career numbers were to be compared to the current day NHL records, his 1,310 games played all time would put him 64th all time, behind Bobby Holik and ahead of Marian Hossa. His 556 goals would tie him for 28th all time in NHL history, with Johnny Bucyk ahead of Ron Francis and behind Guy Lafleur. His 588 assists would put him 103rd all-time behind Dave Keon and ahead of Paul Kariya. His 1,144 points would put him 58th all-time ahead of Nicholas Lidstrom and behind Michel Goulet. His 4,657 shots would put him 12th all-time behind Jarome Iginla and ahead of Joe Sakic. And his 2,263 hits would put him 15th all-time behind Nick Foligno and ahead of Chris Kunitz. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the 20-year career of Tage Thompson, 14 years of simulation, his real-life career starting off with the Chicago Wolves, some time with the St. Louis Blues, San Antonio Rampage, traded to the Buffalo Sabres, spent some time in Rochester, then comes up to the NHL and has been electric, especially in 2021, 2022, and in the real world 2023. In this simulation, I don't think that his best seasons were a reflection of what his actual best seasons will be, but if he could hope to get over 550 goals and over 1,100 points in about 1,300 games in his career, I think he'd be very content with that. A lot of shots, a lot of hits, made over $100 million. His 82-game career average obviously lowered a little bit because of his earlier seasons, but he goes out with an average of 35 goals and 37 assists per 82 games in his career, 72 points, very fitting as number 72, 292 shots per season and 142 hits per those 82 games. In the playoffs, not much success, only 57 games played, 1,310 regular season games, 57 postseason games, 15 goals, 27 assists, 42 points, never seeing further than the second round. He does go out with honors as the Sabres franchise leader in seasons played, games played, goals scored, and shots taken. But no personal hardware, no Stanley Cups. I'm sure he had some votes for some awards, Bill Masterton or something, still putting up like 70-point seasons in his late 30s. That's where I think the simulation will probably beat out what he does in the real world, scoring 30, 40 goals at that age. But at the moment, what he's doing in the real world is obviously way, way more than what we saw in the simulation. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Even though most seasons likely weren't super realistic, do you think the career totals for Tage Thompson could be realistic overall? Do you think the Sabres could make a deeper run than just the second round over the next 15 years? And of course, if you did enjoy the simulation, be sure to leave a like. It's a lot of work to get them done. I love doing them, but they do take many, many hours. So I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, I'm sure that you would enjoy a lot of the other career simulations that we've done on NHL 20 to 23, most recently Connor Bedard, Matty Beniers. So check those out here on the playlist at the end of the video. Looking forward to reading your thoughts and your suggestions for our next career simulation, and I'll see you in the next one.